All right, factoring section, practice test number 2. Don't be freaked out by the x to the fourth. When you have an x to the fourth, x squared constant, this works just like a normal trinomial. Instead of breaking up just x squared into x and x, we're going to break up x to the fourth into two even factors. So we're going to break it up into x squared times x squared. If you have x to the sixth, it would be the same. We would break it into x cubed. Any even number is going to work like that. All right, so now we just need two numbers that multiply to 64, negative 64, and add to negative 12. So I know I need one negative and one positive to multiply to a negative number. And for 64, when I think of 64, I know 8 and 8. But then anything that goes into 8 is going to work as well. So, or that 8 goes into. So 8 also goes into 16. 8 goes into, and 16 goes into 64. 16 goes into 64 4 times. And those two are going to give us that negative 12. And then you get a negative 16 and a positive 4. So you always want to factor completely. So here, the x squared plus 4 is not factorable. X squared minus 16 is, that's a difference of squares. We can break that into x plus 4 times x minus 4. So don't get so pumped that you got that x to the fourth that way that you don't continue to look for more factoring situations. Because anytime you have a square left there, there's a possibility that you can continue to factor. Okay, 64x cubed plus 1. Sometimes I have students who really want to write prime when they see a cube like this, especially with an addition problem. But remember, cubes works for sum of cubes and difference of cubes. I like to set up my two sets of parentheses. You guys, I think, at least historically, my students remember SOAP for cubes, and that's kind of about it. So SOAP tells us the sums. Same, and here, since that is a plus up here, we're going to do same, opposite, always good. So that's lovely. It's great if you remember SOAP. And if that's what you remember now, your work is to work on the pattern. So the pattern for cubes, for your numbers and your variables in here, is AB, A squared, AB, B squared. And your A is your cubed roots of your first term, and your B is your cubed root of your second term. So the cubed root of 64 is 4. The cubed root of x cubed is just x. And that's your A. The cubed root of 1 is 1, and that guy's your B. And always, I'm not going to give you ridiculous numbers on the entrance test. So don't get worked up about your cubes. Just make sure, really the 90% of the battle is your pattern here. So our A is 4x, our B is 1. Make sure when you're squaring here, I always do this in 2 steps because I know I need to do A squared, and that means I need to square the 4 and the x. It's a very common mistake to just square the x. Our middle term is 4x times 1 here, A times B. And our last term here is B squared, so that's going to be 1 squared. So now we just need to clean this up a bit. Again, 4 squared is 16, x squared is x squared. That's probably the, other than just not knowing the pattern, getting this term right is probably there's where I see the most mistakes. All right, last problem in the factoring section. Look for a GCF first, especially if your number's like here. I'm not really interested in doing 24 times 9 if I don't have to. Not without a calculator at least. So when I look at 24, 30, and 9, they all have 3 in common. And remember, factoring is just fancy division, just a way to break stuff up. So I'm going to divide out that 3 first. 24 divided by 3 is 8, so 8x squared. 30x divided by 3 is 10x. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And now I'm going to factor with what I have in the parentheses there. You still want that 3 on the outside in your final answer, but now we're going to factor with this, and our lives are going to be a little bit easier since the numbers are smaller. 8 times c, 8 times 3 is 24. I need two numbers that multiply to 24 and add to negative 10. Those two numbers for this one are 6 and 4, and I need negatives. I'm multiplying to a positive and adding to a negative. I'm going to bring down my 8x squared. The order of negative 6x and negative 4x does not matter there. That 3 is going to stay on the outside. While I factor inside my parentheses. My first two terms have 2x in common. Split the middle is like, you split the middle kind of 2 times. You split the middle term, and then you split it in half to factor. When I factor out that 2x, I'm left with 4x minus 3. When I look at my last two here at negative 4x plus 3, bring down that middle sign, 4 and 3 just have 1 in common. So really, you're just factoring out that negative to make your signs match. Here's what our final answer looks like. 3 times 2x minus 1